We are here for another patron Q&A. And again, we have Adie, who is going to ask us a really interesting question about old wine. I know a lot of you asked this question. So Adie, what is the question here?
Well, my question basically is I had a chance, and I don't know if this will show up very well, but to buy an old bottle of Rioja from
Okay.
1976, which is the year I graduated high school.
Amazing.
And
So
and
young.
I've never had an old wine before. I mean, I've had wines that are maybe 15 years old,
Mhm.
but I don't I'm on my own in my wine drinking in my house. I can
Right,
probably find a friend who wants to come join me, but my husband doesn't.
right.
So I just don't really know. I'm intimidated. I don't know what to do.
Okay, well, let's talk about a couple of things. We're going to need to think about how the night will unfurl. So the first thing that we need to think about is opening the wine. Have you thought about this yet?
I mean, yeah, I've thought about it, but what
Um,
what
you
happens if the
need
cork
to, I'm
disintegrates?
concerned about the condition of the cork after that long.
Yeah.
Okay. So you may need to get an ASO, one of those two-pronged
Hmm.
cork pullers to take it out.
Oh
If
boy.
it's crumbly and bad, you want to make sure you have one of those. They're like $10. If you don't have one, I would get one just in case. Okay. That's the first thing because you may need to. I can't use them. I know a lot of people know how to, I'm really bad about using them. I can't, but I have used them after trying. I will first very gingerly put my corkscrew in. And a lot of times you can pull it out. Now, I actually did have a 1972, it was vinegar, but I had a 1972 bottle of wine. And so the cork was in decent shape, but there was sediment around. So make sure also you have a cloth to wipe that off with.
Okay.
You cannot you cannot decant this wine for any real amount of time. Okay. It is too delicate. So a wine this old, you can pour it in the decanter if you want, or you can just pour it right into the glass. All right. So too much air is going to make that wine fall apart. And so maybe instead of having one friend, you might want to have more than one friend because
Okay.
you want to make sure you can each have two glasses, but I would just be careful about letting it sit too long. So that's
Gotcha.
another thing. Okay. So now we've got kind of don't decant, watch the cork. And then of course, while you're pouring it, you're going to have a lot of sediment, which you're going to have to be very careful about. You may want to have a filter around. I'm you can catch it in the shoulder of the bottle, of course, but it may not all catch, and then some might get into the wine. So you want to just make sure this is all going to be a little bit of a procedure or a process to open this bottle. It will be an event, let's say.
Yeah.
So after that, you have this wine. And what I will say about very old bottles, and again, I don't think I'm trying to think about like the oldest. I mean, I've had a bottle from 1800, or 1850, but it was port, very different, right?
Yeah.
Sweet wine, not the same. But I did have a 1966 wine when I was in Bordeaux. It was in a Magnum. So it was from Chateau Chaspleen, who's been on the show. And the wine was excellent. Okay. So it
Oh,
still had a ton of fruit and it was really, really good. And you would not be able to tell how old it was because it was so vibrant. But the expectations when you have an old wine have to be pretty low. And you have to understand that fruit fades with time. And there may be tertiary flavors there. There may be some leather, there may be some oak and things like that, some stuff from the American oak dill, but it might be very wispy. So when we think about food, cheese,
yeah.
crackers, you can't really cook a meal with something that old. Now, if it was 20 years old, we'd be having a different conversation.
Okay.
But when we're talking about 50 years old, it really is just a cheese thing, right? Cheese, maybe some olives, whatever. But you do not charcuterie because it's
Yeah.
Rioja. First of all, it's going to take too much time to eat the meal, to cook the meal and eat the meal because you don't want too much air getting in. And second of all, this wine is so delicate and so wispy that it's mostly it will disappear most likely inside of
Okay.
a powerful dish. So something simple and something like, charcuterie cheeses, Spanish cheeses, things like that. And don't have really high expectations because you never know. Now, I know that you do have a Corvin,
Mm-hmm.
so you might want to think about before you have the friends over trying it.
Aha. Okay. I didn't know if that would be a bad thing to do with this wine.
Why not?
Okay.
Just make sure you take the foil off before you put it in, before you put the Corvin needle in,
Right.
because you want to check the condition of the cork. If it's
Right.
crumbly and you put that Corvin in, you're screwed. Now you've got to drink that whole bottle or whatever. But if it's okay, then you can stick that needle in and you can taste it and see what the condition of the wine is. If it's still really good, then you might be able to modify your dishes. You might be able to have more food, but that's the beauty of the Corvin, right? Now,
Yeah.
would I do that many days before I was opening the wine? No, I would not. But if you were having a friend over, um, and you were planning on opening this bottle, then I might do it the night before, the day of, whatever, and try it out. Yeah, the other thing that is incredibly important, at least I have found, is that when I opened my 1972 Pichon Lalonde, it was vinegar.
Yeah.
I had a backup bottle that was a little bit old. It wasn't that special, but make sure you have a backup bottle just in case it goes bad and then you've got something else to drink. That's all I would say. I mean,
That's easy. I have backup bottles.
but some people don't think of that. And I do
Yeah.
think it's an important tip to give to people is that our expectation of old wines is often very high. And sometimes they can be really great, but mostly they're almost a curiosity,
Yeah.
right?
Okay. Yeah.
You see what I'm
And that's
saying? Because
exactly,
it's not going to give you the joy and the pleasure that you may get out of a current vintage wine or something that's a little bit younger. All the fruit will have faded. So it is a bit of a curiosity. Sometimes tertiary flavors rise and they're amazing. Riesling has that. But if you don't like the taste of cheese rind, you're really out of luck because that's what Riesling tastes like after a while. Old champagne, if you don't like the taste of like irony soil, because that's almost what it tastes like, and no bubbles, you're not going to like that. So there's no shame in not liking an old wine. That's the other thing that I would say, because wine is living and it changes, and you might not like what it shows later in life and you might like it younger. And that's why I have challenges with people being like, oh, I'm going to save this wine forever. And it's like, are you familiar with old wine? Because it can be on the decline. I'll give you another story. I was just at Barbersville in Virginia, and because I like them so much, they're so awesome. They gave us some very old wines. They gave us some stuff from I think we tried something from maybe 2004. And I mean, not very, very old, but that's a 20-year-old wine.
20 years. Yeah.
Terrible.
Really.
Yeah, I'd rather drink the current vintage. It was on the decline, it was dying, and it just wasn't very pleasurable. So again, a curiosity, because it confirms the fact that like old wine is not always great. Make sure you have a backup plan.
Yeah. I got it. All right. Well, I will contact a couple of close friends who love wine
Love
and
it.
cut up some manchego and get them over here.
Yes, absolutely. And make sure that you have nice glassware also. I know you do. So
That I do.
that's a good thing.
I do.
And I need you to report back on Patreon about what is going on. You need to tell us what happened after you open the bottle. So make sure that you report back. Don't just leave us hanging here. This is an
All right.
exciting
Maybe we'll
moment.
try to tape our
Take some
little.
pictures and send them to me and I'll post them.
All right. Well, I'm
Yay.
excited about trying it, and I appreciate that Wine Access had this nice old bottle that has a significant year for me, and it'll be a fascinating experiment.
Well, the fact that it's Rioja gives me much more confidence. Rioja and Bordeaux will give me much more confidence than some other old wines, older
Oh, good.
Burgundy, for instance, because it's got tannin in it. And so,
Yeah.
and it's also aged for a very long time in oak, so it's had a lot of oxidation through the oak barrel. So
Hmm.
yeah, it's not those wines are really sturdy. They're meant to age. So I
Okay.
have great hope for you, but
All right.
again, you're gonna report back.
I
All right,
will let.
Adie, thanks for coming on again. This was a great conversation. I appreciate it. And if you are listening to this and you're thinking, I have a wine question for Elizabeth that I'd like to ask, sign up, DM me, and we'll make it happen. Thanks so much for being on. We'll catch you next time, guys.
Thank you.